Welcome to Cape Town Conversations 2024. My name is Carolina Chimoy. I'm a journalist at DW. We're going to talk now about artificial intelligence technologies. This is having a big influence in different sectors, and of course also in the educational sector. What does this mean for education? To talk about this, I'm joined by Marie-Lou Papazian. She is a CEO at Tumo, Center for Creative Technologies, Armenia, and Selma Talha Jibril. She is director of WISE Qatar Foundation. Qatar, thank you so much for joining me. So let's start by a probably for you, very basic and simple question. How is artificial intelligence and tech having an influence in education? Perhaps you want to start, Salma?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for including the topic of education, artificial intelligence, and EdTech in the Cape Town conversations. I think we've been hearing a lot about trades and agriculture and energy and so many other fields. And education, unfortunately, continues not to receive the attention that it should, particularly when considering all the changes that digital transformation is bringing along the way. So at WISE, which is the World Innovation Summit for Education, an initiative in a think tank, an education think tank, a Qatar Foundation, we have been exploring for the past 2 years the integration of AI within the education curriculum, K-12 all the way to higher education and the workforce pipeline. And as much as AI presents many opportunities in the education sector, it also presents many challenges. And so we are commissioning and conducting several studies to have the evidence needed, particularly when we talk about EdTech solutions. There are many incredible entrepreneurs here in the African continent and worldwide finding and proposing solutions, EdTech solutions that could enhance learning and teaching. However, we have yet to gather enough evidence to be able to scale and to be able to have an assessment of which EdTech solutions are actually the most efficient. So again, while there are many opportunities, there are challenges, and one of the challenges that I would like to highlight is the digital divide. Education is still facing a lot of challenges, and the digital divide will continue, in my opinion, to be an even bigger challenge if it's not addressed properly. But on the flip side, you also have the digital divide can be narrowed if EdTech solutions are adopted, contextualized, localized, and made available in multiple languages, because that's also language sovereignty around EdTech. It's another big issue that we can touch upon if we have the chance.
Sure. Selma, I also wanted to ask you about a prize that your organization usually gives out, and this would be connecting us as well to Marie-Lou. So perhaps you can just briefly mention what kind of prize that is and why is it going to Marie-Lou's organization?
Absolutely. So at WISE, every 2 years, we select finalists and semifinalists and eventually a prize winner. It's called the WISE Prize for Education. And it's aimed to support startups and organizations that are contributing to innovation education. And to your point, this is an excellent segue because Tumo is one of the six semifinalists, and we are very excited to welcome them in Doha at the next WISE Summit, December 2025. And I think we have Marie-Lou who can speak most and best.
So. I'm keen to know what Tumo is. What is it about?
So let me try to put this all in a few phrases. So Tumo is an after-school program that started in 2011 for teenagers. We focus on teenagers, and it's free of charge. And it is a complementary to the educational system in Armenia. But since then, we have expanded and we have also started opening centers all over the world. We have centers in France, we have centers in Portugal, we'll be opening in Tokyo, next to Tokyo, in Takasaki, very close to Tokyo. We're opening in South America, we're hopefully opening in India. In Germany, we opened 3 centers, we'll open more centers. So what is happening is, it is very important to focus on the skills of the young generation and to understand what they're up to. A lot of people worry about AI and and the digital device and what is happening professionally in organizations or in the workforce. but is not focusing on what is happening or what should happen in the educational system. And that is very important. Otherwise, you will miss the train.
Of course, I mean, education at the end is also the ground for a functioning democracy, isn't it?
Yes, and you need to prepare them for the future. And when I mean preparing them, it's not about making a decision and teaching them AI only. It's preparing them to be very flexible, to be the soft skills, to be able to learn, to be able to adapt, to be able to confront, to be able not to be afraid, to be able to make the right decisions, to be able to take advantage of what is happening, and how to be creative, consumer, and at the same time critic. So there is a persona, if you can imagine, in the middle that should be the consumer, that should be the creator, and that should be the critique. You should consume something by criticizing, you should create something by criticizing, you should create something for the consumer. So it is not just one answer, but it's how, and this is very difficult, how can you prepare the person for the future, knowing how fast we're moving, how things are changing, and what is very important. It's not a straightforward answer.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, perhaps Marilu, you can give us an example, because I understand what you're saying. It's like a person has to have like 3 ways of thinking while sitting in front of a screen and getting a message, right? How do you proceed with this? You said it's a
very, very simple example.
You said it's post-scholar, so it's after school,
yes,
it's like an afternoon thing.
Let's say you're building a movie. Very simple thing. Yes, before you used to learn how to make a movie, use the camera and everything. Now there is AI, you can just ask AI to make a movie for you. But that's not what we want. We want the young generation to create, to be innovative in how they're building a movie using AI.
So, as an assistant more than
as an assistant, or as a tool, or as a mean, but innovation is key. So you can innovate with AI, not just create with AI. So that's the key. How can you train them?
But how can you teach that? Yeah.
You can teach.
How?
You can teach by teaching what AI does, to understand what AI does, and how you can build your own requirements. Let's say you and I, maybe, if we need a text, we will say our ideas, and ChatGPT will give you a text and we'll be very happy. That's not enough. If you know how to train AI to get the best answers you want and how you want them, it will give you another answer that is above the level of that simple text. So in programming, for example, you can, of course, ask AI to to code for you. But if you are a good AI user, you understand how to train AI, you will get much more than just a regular answer, which will make you as equal as the others. So the key is how to prepare them to get the most of AI, and not just superficially.
Now, how did you choose the countries where you're working? Because you mentioned different countries that, I don't know, Germany, also countries from the Global South. So what are the criteria you have in order to...
They're the ones who are mostly usually approaching us. Because they see the value, and they see, and at the same time, it is a physical place. So we're not losing the touch, the human touch. These teenagers need the human touch. They need to interact. They need to learn from each other. They need to work in teams. They need to see the screens of others. That human touch is very important. So that, I think, because a lot of program softwares are online, and those are isolating the young adult from the community, and they're creating another virtual environment, which could hurt, because these teenagers still need a lot of guidance, a lot of human touch, a lot of interaction, and we need to. Yes, of course, you can find everything by yourself online, but is that what we're aiming to? No.
Yeah. One more question for you, Marilu, before I go into how did you take the decision to choose her as one of the possible 6 people who would, or projects who will get that prize. How did you come up with the idea? So, you or your team, why did you think this is important now?
Because we saw that the school system a few years ago, like 15 years ago, in Armenia was stuck in the past. Yes, they produce maybe the best mathematicians, physicians, but they're not up to what is happening in the world. And that made us, if we are a small country, if we need to leapfrog and be at the level, you have to do something different. You cannot just sit down and wait. And teenagers, they love to learn. They're very interested all the time. I have not seen, if you create that environment and the possibilities of them choosing, understanding, and not making it always a competition, who is the best, or something like that. If you create an environment that they will feel comfortable, you will be able to get them to get to their maximum potential. And every young adult, every child has the right to get to their maximum potential. Maybe they're different maximum potentials, but they have a right to get it. So I think education is key, and it starts from early age.
It is. However, educational systems, not only in Armenia, as you just mentioned, but in many countries, are quite antique and old-fashioned and have not been modernized according to the technology. Is this a big problem? And are there certain countries where you would say that is an example, that is a role model for other educational systems to follow?
Absolutely. So let me just say this. Technologists and EdTech startups have yet to figure out a way to effectively work with government and particularly ministries of education. Because essentially whether you're creating solutions that are to be used by the teachers and the students in the classroom, or to be used as extracurricular activities, you need to be speaking to the constituency that is in charge of enrolling education reform. And that is the policymakers, and that's the Ministry of Education in any country where you operate in. I think one of the issue is that the two constituencies are not speaking the same language. And so as part of the design of EdTech solutions, technologists and startups need to take into consideration what is the priority in the countries in which I'm working, so that you are responsive. And from the policymaker side, it requires a reskilling and upskilling of policymakers. We often talk about upskilling and reskilling and new skilling of teachers and students, but truly, when you do policy advocacy, you are also reskilling and upskilling the policymakers. And how do you do so? By having evidence that are grounded in very robust studies to show them in the most simplistic way, right? Because you still need to talk to policymakers. So you need to speak to what it is of their interests. And I think this is one area that hopefully we'll see some improvements moving forward, how policymakers speak to technologies and how technologies sell EdTech solutions to ministries of education. The other elements, when we look, to give you concrete examples, when we talk about AI-powered tools, for instance, AI tools are helping teachers for grading, for learning assessment, for personalized learnings. So the AI tools becomes almost helpers in the classroom. They are coaching the teachers. Traditionally, you have pedagogy inspectors who would come and train the teachers as part of the teacher in-service training. So there are countries, and Qatar is actually one of them. Right now, we are working with MIT Rays, conducting a study, but as part of the study, we are offering 4 fundamental AI courses as part of teacher professional development development, so that teachers can take those courses that would enable them to acquire new skills on which tools to use in the classroom, for what purpose. And so there are things that are being experimented in Qatar, and obviously Qatar and WISE and the Qatar Foundation is supporting this in other countries. But I think again and again, as much as I want to paint a positive image of where this is going, because it has a lot of potential, I think we need to be very careful that if not looked at from an equal perspective, then we are going to be missing, again, the opportunity of the century.
And
considering the youth population,
then.
absolutely, considering the youth bulge, for instance, in Africa, and considering how much the workforce will have to be absorbing in the next 20 years. If the current students are not given the right mindset to think about AI, and if the current teachers are not provided with the requisite skills, then again, we are missing the train. So I think, and again, EdTech solutions are important because usually the closer you are to the problem, the closer you are to the solution. So organizations, the EdTech startups such as Tumo is very close to the problem, right? And this is how they were able to create a solution. But I think we need to think carefully about access and equity when we talk about EdTech solutions.
Just to make it clear also for viewers, when you say missing the train, what would be the worst case scenario if you don't work on this kind of projects now?
Well, then in the way the world is evolving, all of us needs to be well-versed in artificial intelligence, right? So at this point, it's not just going to be the student, the teachers who are going to be missing the train, but it's going to be all of us. But we need to blend EdTech tools and AI-powered tools with traditional model of learning. And we are not saying that we're replacing traditional ways of learning and teaching.
But learning
a
how
blending.
Both can cooperate.
Yes.
However, there is this big fear when talking about AI in every different sector that jobs might become less for people. So people just don't want to hear about AI because they think they will be replaced. Is this also a challenge you confront when trying to, as you said, sell the EdTechs to policymakers?
Well, that's exactly where we talk about the skills of the future or the 21st century skills. It's in order to ensure that the young population is well integrated into the workforce. The work starts now. So whether we're talking about EdTech for K-12 or we're talking about EdTech for higher education, the sooner we integrate these solutions, the better it would be, right? I don't think, people that acquire the right skills around AI and EdTech will not be left out. They will be able to catch up and integrate the job market faster. I think if I were to say just from a policy-making perspective, it is very critical as part of teacher training to do an AI literacy course. For a teacher, before to become a teacher, every teacher as part of the pre-service training needs to take an AI literacy course, so that by the time they start teaching, they are themselves feel empowered and equipped again with the right skills. How are you able to transfer a skill if you don't have it yourself? It's as simple as that.
Last question to
And
both
it is
of you,
happening.
perhaps.
It is happening.
It is happening, but that's where I'm trying to go. Are countries taking this seriously enough? Like all countries, or are some of the countries just not there yet because of inequality?
Not only inequality, fear also is happening. This defensive fear, and of course, how can we protect? It's by not touching it, not getting close to it, not even trying to understand what is happening. The fear is being defensive is something that I think dangerous. You have to, I'm not saying you have to embrace it, you have to understand it. You have to see how you can turn it to your advantage in schools, with the teachers, with the students.
An instrument.
Yes, because if we don't do it, the kids are doing it. So that's what she meant by missing. It's happening. It is happening. You cannot ignore it.
And I think every country at this stage should have actually a national strategy on AI. So Qatar, for instance, has one. There are many countries all around the world that start drafting the national strategy. And then a national strategy, I would think of it as like a living document. Of course, you're going to do iterations based on how things are evolving in the context in which you are living and operating. But what is a big fear of mine is actually countries that are up until now haven't developed their national strategy for artificial intelligence, because then you're looking at ethics, you're looking at data sovereignty, you're looking at this fear, basically. This fear is essentially ignorance. You tend to not touch something because you don't know much about it. But how much policymakers are willing to say, well, my fear is actually grounded in my lack of knowledge about this tool, about this technology. So we need to overcome these challenges.
Let me try to summarize this now. A very, very enlightening, very enriching conversation. So AI having a huge influence in a very important sector that is probably core to democracies, education, the base of everything, the ground of everything at the end. I'm joined by these ladies who just explained how this offers opportunities but also challenges. They're working on the challenges, trying to train the youth in knowing how to use these new technologies and artificial intelligence for a more innovative educational sector, to go further forward and not to have fears of the AI in this sector. That's how I would try to summarize it, but way more details probably on your sites, on the internet.
I want to add something. We're organizing next March a very interesting conference about AI for teens by teens. So we want to hear their voice. We want them to be the speakers. We want them to discuss ideas and be in charge. They have to be in charge of their own AI journey. Yes, exactly.
Thank you for that advice, and thank you so much for this conversation. Marilu Papazian, CEO at Tumo, Center for Creative Technologies in Armenia, and Selma Talha Jebril, Director at WISE Qatar Foundation. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.